right. Well, let's talk about moves today. Moves, making moves.
Moving.
Um, yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of moving going on between the two of us. So let's
Yeah.
chat about that. I guess kind of like what prompts that, and then what we look forward to at the move, and then like kind of the actuality of what we
Yeah.
find.
When I feel like our our journey of moving has been like super different because you left right after college and never outside of the 1 year, you never came back.
Yeah.
Uh and you never really seemed to like desire to move back. Other than if it was like I wish I was closer to like Ollie because Ollie
Yeah.
was the only kid that we had. And uh but it felt like Nashville was still like good enough. It was close enough. But I feel like you always just kind of looked at it in a way that wasn't, I just couldn't understand. Like it felt like a really big deal to me. And I feel like you always just made it seem like it wasn't that huge to move. Like you did it and it was fine. And then you moved to Atlanta and it was fine. It wasn't fine. You moved back.
Yeah,
But
it wasn't
like
fine.
the decision to move to Atlanta didn't
Yeah.
seem like this like thing you really were like afraid of doing. And then whenever you like had randomly decided like, hey, I always kind of wanted to live in New York. I think I'm going to like go ahead and just do that. And you did that. And then you kind of bopped around and then now you're in Denver, but like still thinking about bopping around. And I moved after college, a few hours away, but I think even when I did it, I knew realistically it wasn't like a long-term thing. I really liked my job, but I knew once I was in it, I was like, oh, I could not have a family and have this job. And I knew that Logan and I wanted a family. So we moved back and then I kind of just thought we would like stay, we've moved houses an
Mhm.
insane amount. Like I think on
Yeah.
average I've moved like at least once a year every year since I left home. Exhausting. But um we didn't move far up until 2020 and I was 30 years old and had a couple of kids and it was like okay, we're finally going to do it, like and it was
Yeah.
for a job. It wasn't we just decided we wanted to move. It was like for the job. And that cross country move with kids felt crazy, but also like it felt right cuz I wasn't scared of it.
Mhm.
I felt really good about kind of putting some distance between everything that I knew. It felt like almost this very like liberating. I can be whoever I want to be. I have full control over influence on the kids.
Mhm.
And then I think I just kind of downplayed, like, I didn't realize because I hadn't done it before how difficult it actually was. But before we
Yeah.
get into all of that, like, I think we could just talk about your moving around and kind of what that looked like for you because you were doing it alone. Like I did the move with Logan. And even when I moved up north, I knew Logan would follow me. But you made some moves solo. And it was I just never understood how you were so like seemingly kind of nonchalant about it. Like, oh, I'll just figure it
Yeah.
out.
I think the irony of how my body processes like stress and risk is like I can get really anxious about everyday things. And then like the bigger things, a lot of times they're like easier for me. And I don't know what that is, but like even like in the work that I've done producing, it's like those things are like really big projects that have to be done really quickly. And there's not typically enough prep time. And it's just, you kind of get this mentality of like, well, I'm just going to do it. So you don't spend a lot of time like worrying about doing it. And those skills and that work came after that move. But I think it's like, I think that's why that job moving into that was a little bit easier for me because that's just how my brain is like wired. Like everyday stress, pretty pretty high anxiety about everyday little things that do not bother most people. But the big stuff, I mean, when Saichin proposed and we were looking at dates and we decided to do a wedding 3 months later in a state we didn't live in for multiple days, mixing two cultures, trying to get his family from India to the States. Like, while I was also commuting to New York for work. I mean, we had so much going on. And in my brain, I was just like, well, this is what we're doing. So like, I just didn't, I don't know, let myself get super worked up about should we? It was just like, this is, so move fast.
Yeah.
But I think like when in college, when I decided that I wanted to move to Nashville, once I kind of like make a decision, it is pretty hard to talk me out of it. And I'm like that in a lot of ways in my life. Like I can be pushed pretty far by a person. Like if I have a relationship, friendship, where maybe it's like not super fair or there's like hurt going on, my feelings are being hurt, I can be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed like pretty far and like try and resolve it and try and resolve it. But when I hit my point and I'm like, oh, I'm done doing this, then I'm like done. And I know you're like that too with like friendships and people. And so I think it's just like part of it is once I make my mind up about something, kind of all the details of how we're going to get there, it just becomes like, well, we're going to figure that out. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The move to Nashville is confusing to me, even as an adult looking back, because I had never, like, even when I went to college, because the college I went to was only 30 minutes away. And because we did that summer program the summer before, like I knew people, I knew some people, they weren't like best friends or anything, but, I had some awareness. But like when I moved to Nashville, I really didn't know anyone. And I don't know that I'd ever been in a season of life where that had happened, because some kids learn those skills, like even going to summer camp. Like, but you and I didn't do summer camps like that. And so I just don't think that was like a skill set that you and I really had much experience with. So I don't really know how that move happened, other than I just really wanted to do it. And maybe it was just because I thought it was going to be temporary, possibly with the internship.
Did you apply for internships in other cities? Because like we didn't even go to Nashville very often. And I don't know that I've ever actually asked you this, or like what made you choose Nashville over, like, we had gone to Chicago a couple of times because that was, I think, actually not even closer to us, but like we had like school trips that would go up to Chicago. But like, what made you choose Nashville over like Chicago or New York or LA if it was like trying to get into that industry?
Yeah, I think, so I went to New York my senior year, with like a school program.
And then 9/11. So like,
I think it was the spring. So it was like after 9/11. And I remember loving New York, but still having a lot of anxiety about like the risk associated with being in New York.
Yeah.
And then LA just felt too far away. Like it felt unattainable and like too expensive. And so, because I really was like honed in on wanting to do music videos, specifically country or Christian music videos, I just only really considered Nashville, I guess. I started looking for directors. I found Roman's work, via Revolution Pictures. And then I just like kind of ended up being like, that's where I want to go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think internship wise, I think other than Indianapolis, like I don't know that I applied anywhere else. And then I went to Nashville. Oh man, I went to Nashville for a passion conference. It was like a Christian thing with some friends. And then
was that the one that I went with you, or did we go to a different one?
It was a different one. I went with Lydia and Jace and some other people. And then I came back and I was like, okay, I'm definitely like, this is where I'm going to go. And then I went back to Nashville one more time before I moved, and stayed with some friends of friends and like kind of got to know the city. But that was really it. I moved, I didn't know anybody. And I moved in with like a stranger off of, I think, Craigslist.
Yeah, you did.
Which also feels really confusing.
Yeah. Was it just one girl or was it two girls when you first moved
It was one girl, but she had like a bunch of pets, and it was a lot. And I love pets, but it was a lot. So that didn't last very long. It was a short-term situation.
And then was it after that didn't you live with two girls at one point?
Yeah. So I ended up getting I think it was right after that, I got a different Craigslist probably roommate. And we actually had like prime real estate. We were right across from Belmont University in this house that no longer exists now. And it was super affordable. And I moved in with this girl, and she was really into mission work in Morocco, which was so fascinating to me because like I didn't even know where Morocco was. And then yeah, we just kind of collected other people. I don't even know how really any of that happened. But yeah, it was so cool because it was just like there were a lot of people from different parts of the country with different life experiences. It was kind of like a continuation of college for me, of just getting to meet different people with totally different backgrounds and totally different like goals in life.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you made your friends primarily from work? Like whether it was like other PAs or other people in the industry, or were you like, I know you have more experience with like online dating than me. Did you ever use any of the
Oh,
like friend apps, you know,
oh
like
no, I never
Bumble
used any of
Friends
the
or
friend
anything?
apps. The friend apps, I feel like that like upgrade that that
Wasn't
version
around
came.
yet.
Yeah, no, that came later. No, I think so. Once I was there, I did have a friend. Jace moved shortly after, so I knew like some adjacent people, and it was funny because Jace ended up. Um, Nashville can be like the biggest but smallest town at the same time, and so at one point, I had a friend that I made through work who was dating someone from Indiana that lived, I feel like he lived or was friends with, he may have honestly lived with Jace. I mean, it was just like weird. It was like how
Mm-hmm.
everything
Yeah.
kind of got interconnected. And so there were a couple people that came to Nashville after me that were from Indiana. And so I had those friends and then like friends that they made. But I think probably predominantly came through work and through my Craigslist roommates.
So so you had an apartment in college and then you moved back in with all of us at the Bates house
Yes, of course.
right before you moved to Nashville. Did you sell all of your stuff or did you get like a storage unit or like what did you move to Nashville with as far
Well,
as
I
like
think that's what I
furniture
was thinking
goes?
earlier when you were talking about how like a move feels bigger, just like felt like such a big deal to you.
Yeah.
Like you, one, had a kid and a husband. So more people equals more things and more people to
Yeah.
think about. But you also like, I feel like um, you and Logan were like on the fast track to adulthood. Like you bought a big kid house and you guys had like furniture. And I know when I was in Nashville, I was sleeping on a futon for a while. I mean, I shouldn't have a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Definitely not like adult things, not furniture. I had like a Nintendo. I had like my
Yeah.
I had like my Nintendo system and some clothes. And that may have been about, really it. And then when I went to Atlanta, all my stuff got stolen. So then I had even less.
Like I got nothing. Coming back with the clothes on my back, babe.
I had very
They even
little.
they even took your damn cutting boards. They
Yeah,
took
I
it
mean, they
all.
took my underwear. Like it was bad. I didn't really have much to come back with. So, I mean, when you don't have a lot of stuff to move, that does make it easier. And I think that that's where, now when I move, it's much more of a headache than the first 10 years of me kind of bebopping around. Just have a lot more crap. And it's like, okay, well, do I move all this stuff or do I start
Well,
over?
yeah, and it's hard because like the older you get, the like we we grew up with not a lot of money, so we're not people that are going to go spend like crazy amounts of money on like high-end furniture. But like you did spend money on your couch. I have spent money especially on like couches or things that you use all the time. So it's like it's easy to get rid of, your cheap plates that you collected from different Goodwills over the years. It's easy to just toss those things out. But when it comes to like bigger pieces, it's like, ugh, if I sell these, I'm not going to get what I paid for at all.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to buy another one. I can't not have a couch.
Yeah.
But it's like the cost of moving things is just insanely crazy. I don't know how people are doing it. Um, so yeah, I feel like when Logan and I moved from Kendallville back to Bloomington, we literally like, which wasn't very nice of us, but everything happened so fast when we sold our house up there. We sold it in like 3 days from listing it. I mean, it was like insane. And then those people wanted to move in really fast, and we had a business to move on top of a house. That's the thing too. We always have like multiple things to move,
Yeah.
multiple buildings. But we literally, when we finally got out of that house, which Logan did the morning that we were supposed to be gone, he was still loading shit up into a U-Haul. We like left some stuff at the house. Like we had these really cool booths that we had gotten in college that we used for, our dinner table for a long time through college. And then at the house up there, they were down in the basement because we hadn't figured out what to do with them yet. We just like left them for
Surprise.
new house owners. There you go. Because we just like ran out of time and manpower and willpower. But then like I think about the big move out here, and like when we made the decision to move out here, we weren't sure if we were going to like it or not. So we kept our house back home, which was a insanely nice house, but it was built in like the 1860s, and it had, it was just kind of like a never ending project house. But it was also like 3,800 square feet. Fair. And I remember moving into that house and thinking like, oh my God, I'm so happy to like never move out of this house. There's so many, we have so much shit.
This is the last time I'm going to move.
Yeah. We have so much shit. I'm so excited to never move again. I'm so over it. And then I remember when we kept that house for the first year and a half that we lived out here. We paid rent out here and a mortgage back home, which was like insane. And then we also paid Dad like a little monthly stipend to do some projects at the house back home so that it didn't just like crumble to the ground.
Yeah.
We were gone. And bless him, he stayed busy over there.
He's like, listen, this house keeps on giving.
He's like, please sell it. I'm so done painting over and over and over again. But like when we moved out here, we literally brought a car full of stuff, and we had 2 dogs, and we only had 2 kids at that point. But we sold our car before we moved. We rented like a big, I don't know, like one of those Yukon, like those massive SUVs,
Mm-hmm.
And had the 3rd row down, and then literally just like had the dogs and then like all of our clothes and some toys stuffed in, and that was it. And then when we finally sold the house in Indiana, we literally got one of those little pods, and we just did one, and everything we could shove in there we did, and everything else we sold. And I just remember thinking like, okay, I'm going to sell our stuff, and like, maybe we'll make some money in a yard sale to help recoup it. But like, I think maybe all in, we made like $4,000 on the stuff we sold at our house. And it was like a house full of stuff. So it like didn't really help much with rebuying out here. But I look around now and I'm like, okay, well, Logan and I don't really like living here. So trying to move. And it's like the amount of shit we have. And like, I don't know how to downsize enough to get it all to fit in the back of our car. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like it's not possible. But it just feels like this like huge never ending task of figuring out like what to prioritize and what you can check off. And like moving, it's hard because there are a lot of things that have to just wait, right? Like until the very end. But like, I don't know. I feel like we are just in this. You'd think after moving this many times, we would be better at it.
Yeah.
And instead I feel like it's just, it just sucks.
Well, here are some tricks I learned. They're not going to be super helpful because you do have a very big house, but
we do.
When I've bought my furniture, even the nicest thing I've ever purchased, which was a West Elm couch that I wanted forever and ever. I got it when it was on sale. Like I waited until West Elm did their like semi-annual sale. So when I went to sell it, like even to break even or to be like, okay, well, I had it for 2 years and I lost $500, but that's only like $250 a year to have a really nice couch.
Yeah.
Like when you go to sell it, couches are really hard to get, like if you need it right away.
Yeah.
And you want anything that is like kind of unique. And I feel like if you live in a city that's very transient, which a lot of the cities I've lived in are, like Denver and Nashville, New York, people need stuff and they need it like, when do they need it? They need it now. I feel like that's like some legal commercial.
I need my money and I want it now.
And so I've been able to like not really lose money on the bigger pieces of furniture, I feel like. Not true with like dressers, cabinets, entertainment centers, like that stuff you're just going to take a loss on.
Yeah.
Other stuff that sucks to move is like books. And I have a lot of books. And I have moved those more times than I should have.
I refuse to get rid of them. Like
I know it's hard because books are expensive too.
Yeah. And like aesthetically, I like the look of them. And
That's
like,
fair.
I just, I mean, the amount of books we have is insane. And we keep moving them because we're like, one day we're going to build like a library and then we're going to have all of these books.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, a lot of these books have been in boxes literally since the Kendallville house.
Yeah.
Well,
they will never leave
the
from
box.
Teaching too. And it was like, I love a kid's book. Like I still will go into a bookstore. It's one of my like love languages is to like any new city I'm in for like a visit to go get a really cute coffee from a coffee shop and then to go to like an independent bookstore. And I will almost always end up buying like a children's book, which is don't have kids, don't teach anymore. But yeah, I just like them. And so I definitely have a lot of books. And I remember one of the first times I moved in Nashville, my friend Jace came over and I had this trunk that Grandpa Lyle had made me to sit in this like little nook. And in the trunk, I would like put all these, all my books. And in my brain, because I can like, this goes back to Dad saying like your books, it's a good thing you're book smart because you're not street smart. I have like no common sense with like very everyday things that most people would get. Children would probably be like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Yeah. I put all of my books, I was on the second floor. I put all my books in my heavy trunk. And I was like, look, now we can just move it all down. It'll be so easy. And my friends got there to help me. And they were like, this is literally 1 million pounds. Yeah. Like, why did you put all of your books in it? I'm like, oh, right. So, but books, they take up a lot of space. They're super heavy. And, like what I'm going to do for our next move is take any book that I haven't touched in the past year. And if I like really, really love it, maybe I'll take a little picture, make a little note to go buy it later from a used bookstore. But I'm going to take all my stuff to a used bookstore and just get let it be. I can't keep moving because the amount of money I'm going to spend moving, it's just like, and it just sucks. It just sucks to keep moving them. It is the worst part of any of the other stuff I have. But what I will say about moving a lot is you don't have a lot of crap. Like you don't have the opportunity to hoard a lot of crap because you constantly have to be going through your stuff because you're going to move it again. And I do find that as like a sigh of relief. Like I'm not constantly once I get somewhere, I'm not going to be like tripping over all of my stuff. I'll get new stuff and that'll become like a new thing. But when I think about people who've lived in the same home forever and ever, amen, it's going to be a big purge one day. Like there's going to be a lot of stuff that has to be gone through. And that is not my reality. And I'm very grateful for that. Because when I do feel the most anxious is when I have too much stuff in my space. It's almost like, I don't like using the phrase vibe, but it's like when you walk in a room, it just like feels like I feel like anxious immediately because it's like, oh God, there's lots of stuff. And I had started to feel that way in my condo in Nashville. And I lived there, I don't know, maybe like 7 years before I moved. And I used to routinely call my friend Liz and be like, can you just like come hang out with me while I don't know what to do with all this stuff. Yeah. So that's been really good for me to like get rid of it. So I would say even people who aren't moving, if you want to like give yourself a little project and pretend like you're going to move, you can get rid of a lot of stuff. And there are some endorphin releases as you push that trash bag out into the the ether away from your home. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Somebody else's problem now.
Yeah. I feel like I think for me the hardest thing about moving, and I've talked to you about this, but I think for us, like, you know, we grew up in the same house our whole childhood. Like mom and dad bought that house when you were like 5. So I'm sure you don't have a lot of memories of pre that house.
I think I was 3. And I definitely, even if I would have been 9, my memory's so bad. But yes, I only remember that house.
Yeah. And like I was born and raised in that house. So like,
yeah.
And they still live there. So I'm thinking about like when you mentioned having to go through things, we've talked numerous times about like, man, the day we got to go through mom and dad's shit, like we better set aside a whole month to do it because it's going to take forever.
Yeah,
like
it's a lot.
Mom's got
sheds, garages.
I mean, just like fully used notebooks that she's like packed away instead of just tossing, you know? And they're not anything. They're like, hey, I'll be right back, you know? And like, maybe they'll be like sweet to look back on, I guess. But like,
sweet to keep one of them. One sheet.
One would have done, you know? No. But I feel like for me, you know, when we bought the house on Main Street in Indiana, it was like, okay, this is it. This is the house we're going to raise our kids in. Ollie was the only kid we had when we bought that house. And I think Ollie was like 3 or 4. I think 4 when we bought that house. We had Arlo living in that house. And then it was like, okay, I guess we're going to move. And we're going to move. And we know that we're going to be moving to a rental because we aren't going to be able to buy right away. And so that it was like, okay, Ollie's going to have to bop from house to house until we get settled. And then we finally found this house. And it was like, okay, we're done. We're not going to move. We have 3 kids now. Ollie is, you know, when we bought this house, Ollie was 9, maybe freshly 10. No, 9. And Arlo, funny enough, I think had the hardest time accepting this house because he loved the house that we moved out of. And the house we had before this, we lived in for a year and a half, probably. And Arlo loved that house. And still, sometimes Arlo will bring up wanting to go back to that house.
Sweet.
But we bought this and we thought, man, like, this is it. You know, it's on 5.5 acres. It's everything we ever could have wanted in a house. It's big enough. And now it's like, okay, we still love the house. We still love the property, but like, we can't pick it all up and move it to Indiana with us. So now we have to look at like moving again, and Ollie's 10. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe if we could just, because we're going to move from here and likely be renting until we find something we like and then maybe buy it. Who knows with how like expensive it is to buy a house now. And I just feel like there's this part of me that just feels really guilty because Logan moved a lot as a kid and mentioned that a fair amount. And, you know, really, I mean, Logan, I will never forget that Logan told us one of the first times he really felt like what a home was, what he always envisioned a home to feel like was at mom and dad's, like this just very comfy, cozy, safe place that they had like made theirs and changed over time. But it was like, that was what home was. And I feel like I'm giving Ollie what Logan had of like bouncing from house to house to house to house and always moving. And I feel really like guilty with that because like, I didn't do that, you know, like, I don't know. And it's my biggest, like with Ollie now, it's funny. We love this house so much and like the kids don't. I think it's too big for the kids. I think they like, we don't even use like the bottom half of the house most of the time.
Sorry. When I think about your house being too big, I just think about like, I know when you like leave to run an errand and you come back, Simon will come out, Simon, and be like, Mommy, I lost you. And it's like, okay, like you physically left the property. I get it. But I feel like there are times you're just in the house And Simon
Yeah.
hasn't seen you in a minute. And then he's like, Mommy, I lost you. It's like,
Yeah.
lost you in your big house.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally. Like if I go downstairs and I come up, he's like, were you down there? Were you here the whole time? Like,
Yeah.
I think that it's literally too big. I think that our kids want to be really close to us all the time, which is sweet, you know, like,
Yeah.
and Ollie really misses being back in Indiana. So Ollie is
Yeah.
really excited for the move in that way. And I think that that's the only thing that's really like keeping me afloat when I really think about it. Because I feel bad. And I don't want them to feel like they don't know what like home feels like, because every time they get comfortable in a space, we move or we leave it.
Yeah. And I think there's truth to that. Like, for sure. I think I have friends who moved a lot. And they talk about that, like how they moved a lot. And I think for them, it was more like the friend group that they had to remake every time than the actual, like the physical space of the home. Because their families stayed the same, even though they moved a lot. And you guys you've stayed the same family. Like, I think the added layer for Logan is he spent half of his time with his mom, half of his time with his dad. They moved a lot, both of them. They had different partners. So there were a lot of moving pieces. It wasn't just the physical four walls of the home. But I hear you. I mean, I think we never knew anything different. So it's hard to know like how much we took, I guess, like how much that really impacted us and how much we just kind of like took that for granted because it was just like what we knew. Yeah. But it's funny that we're both adults. And I don't know if this is like generational, just kind of like how people have a lot of different jobs now. I mean, back then you had one job and you kind of did it forever. And I mean, so much of that has changed. So I don't really know how often like kids' upbringings will stay the way that ours was, you know, just because I think families move around a lot more. But I hear you. And I think that it's funny that you and I both like, we had that comfort of growing up in the same home, our parents still living in the same home. And we both decided to pursue life paths where we like have kind of bebopped around, almost like it's like exciting because that wasn't what we knew. Whereas Logan, it was like, you always want, like, you kind of just always want what you don't have. So he didn't have that. So he really desired that. So I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I mean, there is like such a comfort even now to go back to mom and dad's house. And for a long time, dad's parents, you know, they had that house on, Rockville Road in Indianapolis. And I do remember that house from, our childhood.
I do too.
And I loved that house. It was creepy, but I loved that house. And I think that when they moved, I was in middle school, I think. And when they sold that house and moved to Spencer, I remember just being so sad about them not having that house anymore. And every time our other grandparents lived pretty close to that, so we would pass their house a lot. And I'd always be like, can I like go knock on the door and just be like, hi, can I just like walk through the house?
Can I walk around?
Can I just do a little, you know?
Can I take one terrifying trip down into the basement just so I can remember that I don't actually like it down there?
Can I go upstairs in the bedroom and let the bathroom door, just the wind catch it and shut it and feel the fear of a ghost? Yeah. But I don't know. So I will, the day that mom and dad don't live, and I think they will stay in their house forever, but the day that house is not in our family anymore will be very, very sad to me. But for me, it's more like the memories associated with the place. So even like when Saichun and I talk about leaving the place we're in now, I asked him yesterday, I was like, what will you miss about this place? Because this was always going to be a temporary spot for us. And we ended up staying a little bit longer than we thought we were going to. But he was like, I'm going to miss like the people that I know. Like when I go out and take Theo on a walk, like I know that couple and kind of like just pointing around or, you know, whatever. And I was like, I'm going to miss like the memories we've made here of like, even like the annoying memories, like, cause we got Theo as a puppy in this place and like the spots where he used to always have accidents in the hall. Like, it's like, that was the house that he always was going to, and I'd have to run and get like the carpet cleaner so the people would know that he had like pooped right outside their door. I'm sorry. But like, that's what I'll miss in the little neighborhood walks. And I think like the cool thing though, is like, you get to take that diversity of memories with you, like each place. Like Saichin and I lived in Cincinnati together for a little bit. And there was a coffee shop we always went to, and there was a fire station across from the coffee shop that kids would go, and we would just sit and watch the little kids like go talk to the firemen. And it's like we have this collection of memories that is kind of like traveled with us as we've moved homes. And I think your kids will have that, and that will be something that is not necessarily better, but just different than like what we had growing up. Like we had one area where we made all of our memories.
Yeah.
But I totally get it, because it's like, it's different for different kids, right? Like some kids probably view more of it as like an adventure, and some kids are like, I don't want to leave my friends.
Yeah.
I feel like Ollie doesn't have as much of a hard time with that part.
Well, I just think it's been harder for Ollie to make friendships that were like solid. And I think part of that is because, you know, when Ollie's school journey has been so unusual. You know, when Ollie, a brief history on Oliver Keith's educational background. When Oliver started kindergarten, we immediately started getting phone calls of like kind of being naughty, because they were like, he's bored. They're like, this kid is bored. And so a month after Ollie had been in kindergarten, they were like, we think that we need to move up to first grade. And that was a big decision. Logan was immediately pretty much like, yep, let's do it. Love that. Smart kid. And for me, I immediately was like socially like nervous about that, because I'm thinking long term, I'm thinking middle school, like boys will like hit puberty later than girls already. So for Ollie, it's like we're pushing that, or like getting your license. I mean, my birthday's in October. So like, you know, I always have my license, you know, not necessarily always earlier than people, but I feel like I was one of the earliest in my grade to get my license.
I was 6 months later, girl.
Yeah.
6 months in high school. That's like a decade.
Yeah. You were a young one. Sarah was a younger one. So it was like, I'm thinking of those things. But we went ahead and moved Ollie up because we thought like, well, Oliver's showing that like, he'll just get in trouble. Like he did, like in a way that I was always afraid to go to the office. So like, I never did. I was getting calls like all the time. Ollie seemed to love going down there. And so then
Ollie's like, it's me again.
Yeah. Hi. Y'all miss me. Let me throw a tantrum real quick. And so then Ollie moves up to first grade, but gets a teacher that is very pregnant, getting ready to go on maternity leave. So Ollie's in first grade for like less than 2 months, and then gets a different teacher. But it was like, it managed to work out in the school year where it was like, had the pregnant teacher, had the interim teacher, finished with the pregnant teacher.
Oh.
The now not pregnant teacher. So it was like a lot of juggling with that teacher.
Yeah.
Then we move. We move out here. COVID happens. We moved out here in 2020. So COVID happens. And I think that like we didn't even start school in a school building, because school starts late out here. It starts after Labor Day. So I'm pretty sure we literally started online, which Oliver fucking hated. And and
kids love to be on devices until they have to learn on the device.
Yeah, they're like, huh?
I like to play things.
Yeah. You want me to sit here and listen to you talk to everybody else? No, not happening. So, and like, to be fair, I was home with Arlo. So it was a lot of like, we couldn't just be quiet, you know, but Ollie didn't want to go up to their room at that point. They wanted to be down there with all of us. So online was hard. And then Ollie started, like they would intermittently go to school, right? Like they go to school for a few weeks, then they wouldn't. Then we got COVID. So then Ollie had to stay home for like 4 weeks and then got back in. And it was just like that whole year of 2020 into 2021, that school year, I think was like miserable for everyone, right? Like nobody really knew what to do. It was kind of a lot. And then we finally like get into school. And all of third grade, Oliver, I don't want to say all of third grade, but like really, truly all of third grade, Ollie was naughty, like naughty, big emotions, couldn't figure out how to handle them. And so like, I think Ollie was like a little bit of like a social pariah during that time. It was like, if you don't want to get in trouble, you just stay away from this kid. Cause he's like throwing himself on the floor. Like it was bad, you know, like really bad. But a blessing was moving into fourth grade. Oliver, the teacher moved with the class. So at least we had that consistent teacher. So then the first half of fourth grade went like pretty well. Like it was fine. You know, it felt like we had finally hit our stride. Ollie had made a couple of friends that were like consistent. But then we bought our house in February, and moved in March or April. So Ollie had to switch schools. Or no, wait, I'm sorry. We didn't switch schools at that point.
You let him finish out the school year, right?
I think that we went until spring break. And then it was like, at spring break, we're going to move. And then we'll finish out the last little bit of school here. Because I'm trying to figure out how this is like working out with Ollie just finishing fifth grade. But like, then we came here after spring break, and school goes until like the middle of June here. So we still had a handful of months left. Spring break, I think, was like early April or something. And then Ollie went to school here for like literally 10 days.
It's like so dumb.
So stupid. Like 10 days. And then we got a text one morning that there was a man that was at the school that was causing a scene. He wouldn't leave. They had to call the cops. And it like really, I mean, my anxiety was like at an all-time high at that point. I was like wicked depressed from the move and some stuff that had happened before that. So I was like super depressed, super anxious. And I was like, "Boop, we got to pull. We're not doing it. We're going to homeschool."
It was also right after the Nashville school shooting. And I feel like that, that was super tricky because God, that was so sad. And that like really impacted me. And I feel like you and I had conversations about that. And so I think there were, a lot of factors and like a lot of
pieces in that.
A lot of conversation.
about so it. I was like, okay, nope, we're going to homeschool. I'm capable. I have an elementary ed degree. I'm all good. We're good. I'll just homeschool. And that went about as well as online schooling did, which we didn't even do online homeschool. I like bought the curriculum and was trying to sit down. But I think Oliver, again, because we couldn't like make the littles be quiet at that point, it was like, Ollie needs to be able to like do the work. And Ollie didn't want to, you know, it was like, and then it was just this like, all of a sudden we were seeing old behaviors resurfacing, a lot of like big emotions that Ollie just seemed incapable of controlling at all. And so it was like, oh, cool. Well, we're fucking done for this school year. And next year we're going to do something else. But I wasn't ready to send Ollie back to physical school. So I was like, there's this option out here where it's basically hybrid. So like 2 days a week, Ollie would go to school for like a half day, but then the rest of the time it would be homeschooling curriculum. So we started fifth grade trying that. Fingers crossed. It's going to work. It fucking did not work. Ollie hated the schoolwork at home, would say that they really liked going to school at the physical building, but it was always a pain in the ass to actually get Ollie to want to go. It was like a nightmare. And it was 2 days a week. Like, bro, what's going on? So we lasted in that program for like literally about 6 weeks. And I was like, hey, we got to get him back in the physical school. I got to just get over what I'm feeling because this isn't working. And I can't do this a whole school year. And I'm nervous that Ollie's going to fall behind. So then we got Ollie back into the school here. And Ollie went in, I think Ollie started there like in November and then finished out, this school year. So Ollie is like there's been a lot of bopping around at school, which I think has really impacted Ollie's ability to like make friends and keep friends.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel awful because like I remember the first couple months of Ollie this school year being back at Chester, and Ollie was like, yeah, like I'll sit at lunch with like this one kid, but if he's like gone or absent, I'll like sit alone. And it like wrecked me, right? Like, because I was always so like, what do I got to do to fit in? Or how do I make myself be someone that's in the room that people either want in the room or they don't not want in the room?
Yeah.
Which I think was like a little trauma response, but that's fine. You know, that's fine. It's fine. So I was always really good at just like figuring out how to fit in. And I couldn't understand why Ollie would want to do things that like clearly people don't like. So it's like, well, they don't want to sit with you because you're doing these things and you're getting in trouble and you're like having big behaviors, or you're like literally in the 5th grade and you're licking the floor. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And how do I make you stop? Because I feel awful for you that you're sitting alone. Like even in school, if I saw a kid sitting alone, I would go sit with them. Like, I don't want my kid to be the one that's struggling to make friends. But I think that Oliver has not been like in the school setting consistently enough, both because of COVID, but really more because of our moves. And I think it's like really had like a social impact on Ollie that I don't know how to get out of.
Yeah.
And at this point now, it's like, I like wish we would have never bumped Ollie up academically, because I don't know that Ollie's going to be able to catch up socially. But I think in all of that, tying it back into the move, I've told Logan, like, if we want to move home now, like, I do not want to start Ollie mid-year at another school. Like, I don't want to split the year again, because I think that like we have seen that that's really hard for Ollie. If Ollie doesn't come in with everyone else, then Ollie comes in with a spotlight on them of being the new kid, and then Ollie doesn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So Ollie continues to make the wrong choice to try to get attention and keep attention.
Yeah.
And then it's just this struggle of figuring it out. I mean, it took until probably the last 10 weeks of school before Ollie really like found a friend group that was more than one person.
Yeah.
And Ollie's one person that Ollie started the year with moved right around Ollie's birthday. So it's like that person wasn't even a consistent person for Ollie all year. But in order for us to move and make it to start the school year, school starts much earlier back home than it starts out here. So it's like, okay, well, then we have to make a decision and move all our shit and sell our house. And we've got like 6 weeks to do it.
Yeah. And that's what makes moving with kids a much bigger deal than just as a solo person. Yeah, there's just a lot more people and things to consider. I think I've hated that Oliver's had such a hard time at school socially, and I don't know what the right answer is in terms of, do you keep a kid in a class that they're going to be super bored just so they can try and learn the social skills? But if they're bored, they're probably going to be getting in trouble, so they're not learning the social skills. Like, I don't know what the right answer is for that. But I will say that I love Ollie so much. Quirky kid. I love quirky. I just keep thinking about the one comeback he had, or they had it recently, where they called a kid a potato or something. What was it?
Oh my God.
I love Oliver.
This
He's
kid,
so funny.
This kid on the bus made fun of Oliver's drawing. Which like, hey, leave Ollie alone. All right. They're sitting on the bus drawing a picture. They're not causing problems. They're drawing. Yeah. This kid made fun of it, and Ollie whipped over and was like, well, at least I don't look like a potato from the 1980s. And I'm like, what does that even literally mean? Like a wrinkled up, shriveled up potato? Like, I'm sure the kid doesn't even look like that. But like,
do you think that zinger hurt that kid?
Where do you come? If they does that boy still think about like what the fuck did that kid mean by that? It reminds me of that. Oh my god, one of my favorite TikTokers, Kyle Prue, where he's like subtle ways to piss off men, and it's like
I've never seen it.
Oh my god, you have to watch.
So your job as a younger sister is to send me the TikTok. I can't figure out the TikTok algorithm to find the funny accounts.
Oh
so
my
Shelby
god,
will send
dude.
me some, but not enough.
This guy kills me. He's putting out a book, I think in like September, that's like the manual of how to piss off men. But it's like the funniest shit is because he's like, a lot of these things have been said to me and they haunt me. But he was like,
not the like, potato haunting someone.
But like, feels like one time this girl asked me if I had a peanut allergy, and I said no, and she's like, "You look like someone that would have a peanut allergy." And he's like, "What the fuck does that mean?" Or he said to tell a man that he's got dainty wrists. Like it's very little subtle fucking quips, but it's like it will haunt a man if you tell them. Think about all the like angry rage men that like are mad that women have said that they've missed leg day, and it's like this horrific like, I'm strong, don't shut up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or he was like I was at the gym and this girl asked me if I was anemic, and I'm like, he said, and I was like, no. And she's like, are you sure? Because you really look anemic. And he's like, no, I'm not anemic. And he's like, and the fucked up thing is actually I am anemic, but I don't like that she called me out on that. Like, but his shit is so funny. You've got to watch it. He really like rose in popularity, I think during COVID, because he had like a random video that really hit of like a list of ways to piss off men. And it's just these very small, like if a guy, yeah, very micro. But like anytime a guy talks about the NBA, it's like, oh, are you talking about the women's or the men's? You know? Like just play stupid on, but it's like men just get so like angry over nothing sometimes, you know? But anyway, I feel like that's what Ollie does. And Ollie doesn't even know that they're doing it. But it's like, I bet that kid still is thinking like, fucking potato, not even potato. Not even a fresh potato, an old one. Because
but also like, I just want to be inside Oliver's little brain when they think that that's like like, I would never think to tell someone they look like an old potato.
No, I think if somebody said that they didn't like my drawing, I'd probably just start crying quietly.
Right.
Like, I would have just quiet tear. Okay, mean, thanks. Ollie is not afraid to throw back an insult. Almost gets excited at the idea of like, give me a reason to seek vengeance. And I had to tell Ollie, because they kept getting in trouble at school. And I'm like, you're the one that's getting caught. Because it was always like, well, this kid did this thing to me, so then I did something back. And it's like, Ollie, you're always getting caught. The other kids are apparently sneakier than you or quieter about their event, whatever. But Ollie's like, well, but if they do something, I have to seek revenge. And I'm like,
to defend my honor.
Like, no, actually you don't. Please stop doing that, because it just never ends. Like,
yeah, it is so interesting. Oliver's personality. I guess I would say Oliver is most like Logan. So I wonder if Logan did that as a child as well. But you and I, like, yeah, if somebody insulted me and especially if I felt like they were a threat, hey, listen, I'll pretend like I didn't hear that. You got me. I'm not even going to respond.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it to escalate. And I don't want you to say something that's even meaner. Like,
no. And it's funny because like it almost feels like too, like Oliver has gotten into a couple little scuffles, nothing serious, but a couple little scuffles. And it's funny because the one where Oliver arguably took the most was from a kid that was smaller. And it's like, hey, if you would have wanted that kid to leave you alone, you could have made that kid leave you alone. But instead you let that kid like climb on top of you and like knock it off. Like literally. But Oliver had another kid do some stuff, and Ollie waited until they all went to get off the bus and then like shoved this kid to the ground. I'm like, that kid, you literally told me that kid could beat you up. Like, why are you trying to throw hands with a kid that you know is bigger than you.
Kid
Like,
brain,
why
man. Just not thinking it through.
the amount of time, like, I am such a non-confrontational person, that I can't actually think of very many times that I've ever stood up for myself, even if it was somebody that I could have or could not have taken. Like,
Yeah.
But definitely, if I thought, oh, this girl could, like, without even thinking, beat the shit out of me, ma'am, I'm going to say something. You say something mean to me, I'm going to give you a compliment, and I'm going to walk away. Or like,
thank you for letting me know how stupid I am. I appreciate you.
Oh my God, I am a big piece of shit. Gotta go. Do you want me to buy you a soda on the way out? Like, I would have never.
Yeah. And it's funny because you and I, like, well, I'm assuming, I don't remember, you never got in any kind of physical
Literally
fight.
never.
Yeah, me either. So it's
Are you insane? Never.
And the only person I can think of in our family, now I don't know about Logan's family, but in our family, on our side, is like that was naughty in school is dad. And even dad is like, so I've heard him tell Oliver before, like, I never got sent to the office like you did. Like, just, even dad's kind of like, And it is funny because Ollie's such an empathetic, sweet kid. I was talking to a friend recently and she was like, oh, how are your sister's kids and Ollie? And she was at the wedding and Ollie was really sweet with her, her son, who's substantially, like, he's probably 6 years younger than, I don't know, even more, very little. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Ollie's like so empathetic and so good with small kids and such a good brother. Like, Ollie gets fed up with their brothers for sure, but he, like, very patient in a lot of settings that most kids wouldn't be. And so it is so funny to me, like, in this one world, Ollie can be so great and, like, manage emotions and do all the things. And then you put him in school and Ollie's like, I'm about to take this place down.
Ollie's like, so send me to the principal. Call my mother. I don't care.
Dare you.
Call her.
So I really hope that changes for you.
God, me too. Me too, dude. So that's why I told Logan, I was like, if we don't move before the school year starts, then we have to wait until next year because I can't do it. And on top of that, Arlo starts school this year. And Arlo's so excited to start school. And I really, really, truly I think Arlo will be more like me in the school setting. I think Arlo is so excited to make friends. And the schooling part is secondary, but Arlo is very smart,
you
can
smart
read.
Kiddos.
So it's like, I think that Arlo will also go into kindergarten and likely know the majority of what they're going to teach before they even start. But I think Arlo will just thrive socially. So I don't think that there will even be a question of, like, should we move Arlo up? I think Arlo will be happy to, like, just be helpful in a way that Oliver just wanted to, like, be the star of the show. Yeah. Hey, I'm done working. You guys want to watch me perform? Like, like, no, no, they don't. Please stop. Please stop it.
It is interesting. I think, it's interesting to have your perspective on it because a lot of times I mean, you always approach life with, like, your lens, like your viewpoint, you're looking at it through your lens. So in my mind, when people are like, oh, I really wish I could do this thing, I'm like, you should just do it. Like, they're like, yeah, but I'm like, no, just like, go do it. What do you mean? Like, do you need help doing it? Do you want me to help you with the plan? Like, what's the, and it's funny because it's just like, you have been a constant reminder of, like, oh, like, other people just have a lot more to consider. Yeah. And their decision impacts a lot of people in different ways. And it's like, how do you as an adult figure out, and as a parent and a wife, figure out, like, what takes priority when a decision that needs to be made for a family is going to negatively impact someone, right? Like, so is it supposed to always negatively impact the parent? Is it supposed to, like, you know what I mean? When do you shield your kid versus when is it just like, we have to do this because it's best for the family? Yeah. I mean, you guys moved out to Washington or to Coeur d'Alene really for, like, a work opportunity. And I don't ever want to fault somebody for pursuing a work opportunity. I think the unfortunate thing for Ollie was it was a series of things that were, a lot of it out of your control. And so it just kind of compounded. And like, would you do it the same way if you could do it all over again? Probably not. But, like, you didn't know all of that stuff was going to happen. So God, none of us knew COVID could be what COVID was. I mean, who would have
Yeah.
ever thought that the ongoing implications of all of that?
Yeah. When we moved, we really thought that like, I mean, we moved Memorial Day weekend is when we like loaded up and left. And we'd already experienced like, lockdown at that point, but it felt like, okay, well, summer's coming. Everybody's really optimistic that like with the good weather, COVID's going to like see her way out and we're going to be all good. And then we come out here and it's like, oh, nope, everything's still shut down. We're like still thinking about whether or not
Yeah.
we're going to reopen ever, or, how many more people are just going to like die because of this, or get vaccinated or don't get vaccinated, or like it just was such a, I mean, I don't even think they actually had the vaccine when we moved out here. Maybe they did. I don't know. But it
I don't
just
think
was
they
like,
did because you guys would have gotten it. You got
yeah,
COVID, and then so no, the vaccine wasn't available.
yeah. So, so yeah, we just didn't realize that like we absolutely never thought when we moved that school wouldn't start when it started. Like
Yeah.
that we were still going to be dealing with it then. And then it felt like 2021, it just was like those 2 years, it was just a lot of everybody looking around like, what are we going to do? Like, what's happening?
Well, I'm sure a lot of parents, even if they didn't move, would identify with a lot of like your story with how their kids responded
Yeah.
to just a lot of disruption to like a normal schedule.
Mm-hmm. And I am thankful that like Oliver, in the midst of all of the school moves and the homeschooling, not homeschooling, online, not online, Oliver still finished 5th grade this year, top of the class. And it's like, I think that's where for me, it's like, if we wouldn't have moved Ollie up, like Ollie just is off the chain smart, like,
Yeah.
I think truly will grow up and have like one of those like wildly big IQs. So I think that moving Ollie up was an unavoidable thing. If we wouldn't have done it in kindergarten, it would have been a question every single year. But I just feel like, yeah, all of the moving, all of the uncertainty with COVID, all of that stuff really compounded Ollie being young in school to like make socializing really difficult. And my goal has always been to try to figure out how to get back on track before like middle school starts, because I feel like once middle school starts, if you haven't figured out how to either fit in or fly under the radar, the next 6 years are miserable. And I loved school because socially I got it. And I just want our kids to love school. I want them to love their school experience. And it makes me sad to think that if we can't get it we've got 1 year left now. Like if we're going to move back, then Ollie gets 1 more year before middle school. And it's like, this is the year to figure it out. So I just feel like we have to give Ollie the best chance that we have, which is starting school with everybody else and sticking with it. So I don't know, fingers crossed, but that means a lot of moving pieces.
Better get your stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
I know.
Come and buy my things.
I know. And I am thankful that like for us, at least, it's not affecting like Logan's job or anything like that. Like we don't have to worry about, we have a house to move to. Like we don't have to be worried about some of the things that people have to worry about when they are truly starting all over or having like a big move that has lots of pieces. Our biggest piece is physically moving. Yeah. But damn, dude, it's an overwhelming task. I know you texted me yesterday, like officially starting the purge before I can start packing because your guys' lease is up in a few months. It's exhausting.
It's just so annoying. It's so
hard
annoying
to look around and you get mad. You're like, why do I have so much shit? Why did I buy this? Why do I have all this?
When it's super interesting, and I think this is different for you because you and Logan both like acquire things. Logan has a lot of hobbies. his
And I
hobbies
love the
take up a lot of
thrift.
space. You
I
have a
love
lot of
the
thrift.
antique.
Saijan doesn't really buy very much. So when I look around and I get frustrated, I'm like, oh, like help me with it. He's like, it's all your stuff
You're like,
that
it's
you
me,
moved
and it's me, and it's me, and it's me.
here. I'm like, I'm the problem. You're right.
Sorry.
And I get annoyed. And I read this book. I wish I could think of the name of it right now, but it's all about how as an adult, you work to acquire things. And like, that's the goal, right? It's like, oh, I'm so excited. I really want this couch or I really want this car. And then once you have the thing, you have the responsibility of owning the thing.
Yeah.
And how like mentally taxing that is, or physically taxing or whatever. It's like, now, okay, well, I have to take care of the thing and I have to worry about it. And like for, we could go down a rabbit hole with your car, which we won't, but it's like you get a car and you have to have the cat converter replaced 5 times. And
5 fucking times on a 2020. Come on, y'all.
Like, I mean,
Insane.
And the burden of that, right? It's like the American dream, and the thing we're told is like, well, you need to own things and like have things. And then you get the thing and it's like, now you have all these things to worry about.
Yeah. Like,
and how
the worst thing
is.
I've ever done.
Yeah. And so I think that's I think that's where that whole like minimalistic life is very enchanting to me. And Sachin and I go back and forth when we think about future plans. It's like, okay, like do we want like a bigger house, or like with a little more space than we really need? Or do we want like property? We'll never be able to have property like mom and dad have, but like, do we want those things? Or is it like, do we just want something that's maybe a little smaller than we need, because then we can't like surround ourselves with things that then we have to take care of, that takes time away from being able to just slow down and enjoy the day. Because now we have to clean all the things and protect all the things and move all the things and insure all the things. And so
I
yeah,
wish I could be a minimal. Like, I wish that I could be a minimalist and enjoy that. I think I am just a maximalist at heart. Like, I follow all of the maximalist interior design pages. I love the look of things because like I buy things that I look at and they make me like smile. They make me happy. Yeah. It's like truly a dopamine rush for me to see the thing. So it's like, I'll look around now and I'm like, that thing sucks. I can get rid of that. But like the majority of my little trinkets, I don't know how to part with them. So it's like, well, then they have to come. They have to. Because like, I'm looking at, I have you know what it is. It's a teapot that is a granny with cats. Yeah. And it's like, it has never actually been placed in a decorative way, but I can't get rid of it. I can't. No. I love it so much. It brings me so much joy whenever I do see it. Yeah. But it's like, I just need to get it on a good shelf, but I need to get the shelf hung up. And that's where Logan's ADHD kicks in, of like, he has a hard time with the breakdown of the steps that need to happen to like do the thing. So I'll buy the stuff for the shelf, but a year later, I'm still waiting on the shelf.
Yeah.
Gotta get on that. So, but yeah, I don't know. Yuck. I don't want to be in my moving girl era. And I know that you don't want to be in your moving girl era, but I think
I don't. It's
together
it's a lot easier when you're younger.
Yeah.
But I will say that like, as annoying as it is and all the things, like when you get to the place that you want to be, it is worth it. It's like worth the annoying cross country drive. It's worth the boxing. It's worth like, all those things to have whatever it is
whatever
you're seeking.
You're chasing. Yeah.
But girl, I'm not lying when I say I'd love to find a little place that I can hunker down for a few years. I don't know. Well, I do know. I don't think I'll ever be a person that will be somewhere for a super long time. I think the only thing that will change that is having kids. And if that like needs to impact when we move, like being strategic and obviously like always trying to learn from the lessons of like the people around me. Like I've seen you guys like struggle with your decisions with like Ollie's education. And so like those will be things that like I'll take into consideration. But yeah, I just don't know that that's like how I'm wired. I get bored pretty easily and like want, I mean, staying in Nashville, I was there for 15 years And I was like, the last couple of years I was in Nashville, I was like, I got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking like, do I just need a house and not a condo? Or am I just like, don't want to be in Nashville? Or, so yeah, so I think that like 15 years might be my max.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll change if, when we start a family and it just becomes, different. But, yeah, I don't know. The idea of not moving. And I think when you have that feeling in you of like, I don't know that I can stay somewhere for too long, it does make the decision to move easier. The decision to move to Nashville, like I had been in Indiana for 21 and a half years at that point. Like I was ready to try something new. So it made it easier to move. And when I moved to Atlanta, I at least knew one person there. It was my college roommate for my freshman year, and I had somewhere to move. So that made that decision easier. Moving back home where I had the most resources, that was the hardest decision for me when I moved in my mid-20s, because I still really liked Nashville. I just, a lot of my community had to change, and I was in a hard season. I was just really sad. And so, like I needed to change something. And so that it just made sense for me to move back. But then I like realized like I still wanted to be in Nashville. And so a year later, I was bebopping back with $500 in my savings account.
Yeah.
And a U-Haul full of probably Goodwill furniture.
Yeah. I just hope, I think literally I was sitting here thinking the longest that Logan and I have ever been in a house ever, 2.5 years. Like I would just love to cross the 36-month mark somewhere. Like,
okay.
I would just
3 years.
I would just love to find a place where I want to stay there for like at least 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, please. Because it's exhausting. Like, it's not fun. And I know that like when we move where we're moving, we're really realistically only looking to be in that house for a year or 2 max. And it's like, when it's that short of a time, it's like, you don't even want to unbox all your shit. You don't want to paint walls. You don't want to do this stuff. And it's like, I'm going to try really hard to like break myself away from that, because then it feels like you're just never actually living in your own home.
Yeah.
But damn, dude, I just want to stay somewhere. Sarah's lived in her house for 5 years, and I go to her house and I'm like, the amount of stuff you have in this house is truly wild. But like, how nice that you have lived in this house for that long. Like, it just feels
maybe
like
you can set a little goal that once you get out of the next home that like, like that's your goal.
Like just delete Zillow off of my phone. Don't even look.
Don't tempt yourself.
Don't even look around.
Well, it's like you don't go to the adoption day at the shelter because you know you're going to come home with a dog. And if you're not really ready for the dog, like don't even tempt yourself. Yeah. So it's like, that might be
just don't do it.
Your thing. You got to.
You see a for sale sign, you just keep looking straight. All right. Don't worry about it. It's not for you. Not for me. Assume everything's getting ready to fall over. You don't need it.
Yeah. But in all that, like you have had some really fun. I've really enjoyed the houses and apartments you've lived in. And like, you guys have been able to experience a lot of different aesthetics and like, do a lot of like really fun things in each place you go to. Yeah. So I still think my favorite, God, I don't know. I really liked your house on Main Street in Spencer. But I can totally get why the maintenance of that house wouldn't be appealing.
And it like wasn't fun maintenance. It was like, hey, these bricks need retucked. I'm like, that sounds like a miserable nightmare that I'm not qualified for, but I don't want to pay someone else to do it either, because that sounds expensive.
But I do really like your house right now too. So
I know I do too.
So like that's the silver lining. You've had the opportunity to live in some really cool places. And Oliver has had access to a lot of really cool experiences that they wouldn't have had if you had been in the same place forever. So pros and cons, baby.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. Stop calling kids potatoes.
Yeah, please don't.
Or maybe call them a potato if they're being mean to you on the bus. I don't know.
I just love that I actually got the phone call. Like that I had to get a phone call from school that Ollie said it.
Oh, I just assumed Ollie told you.
No, babe. I literally got a phone call for that because I think the kid threatened to hit Ollie after Ollie said it. The kid was like, say it again. Ollie was like, potato. Yeah.
Do you think the person that had to call you was just like cackling afterwards?
I mean, I made her repeat it. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
I made her repeat it.
I wish I could remember. Ollie did another one recently, like towards the end of the school year, with a girl. And this girl that Ollie had in class, she had a mouth on her. She had like a mouth on her. And I think that Ollie had gotten into it with her. But this girl, I mean, not to Ollie, she had told another kid to her imaginary. Like she was like, yeah, she was naughty girl. But Ollie said something to her. I'll have to try to dig it out and text it to you because it was a zinger. Like Ollie's just got these random zinger ass like comebacks for people. And I'm like, I don't know where it comes from. I guess that big old brain. It's got what can I say to haunt this person for the next 10 years? So
not a potato.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure we will be incessantly talking about upcoming moves or thinking of moves.
Yeah. Or crying over the cost. So
yeah, but I will say this. You and I have moved a lot. So we do have a lot of skill sets to offer people. If anyone is going through a move, thinking about a move, thinking about selling a house, you've sold a couple of houses, thinking about buying a house, you've bought a couple of places, like we might be able to offer something that is helpful in the way of what do you not want to move? How do you sell something and still make a profit on it? So let us know. Let us know if you got any questions.
Yeah. Or if anybody loves unloading and you're in my area, you just give me a call. I'd love to have you carry a box.
Still in that packing mode.
If anybody loves purging and organizing, hit me up. Yikes.
It is way easier to purge someone else's stuff. That's what we should do is set up a network where it's like, hey, anyone who's moving, log in. And then it's like, I'll come purge your stuff. You come purge my stuff.
Yep.
Because I do get a dopamine release when I get to throw other people's stuff away.
Yeah.
Way more than
I need somebody to do that with like hats and gloves. The amount of like single gloves that I'm like, but what if I find the buddy? It's like, babe,
You're
just
not.
throw away the damn glove. It's probably only $3. Like they're not expensive at Target. $3 for a pair. Just get rid of it.
Yeah. Or that is something Tessa told me. I don't know if you remember Tessa Carr from my condo, but she was like, she was like, I read somewhere if it costs less than $25, just don't move it. And I was like, that's honestly not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because the amount you pay to move all that stuff, it's like.
Or like I have a basket and it makes me, I feel like I keep it around and it literally makes me mad. But I have like this basket that's probably like, this size. And it's of like, where's the other sock? And I have toted this thing from every house that we've lived in here. And it's just accumulated more and more socks. I'm like, just throw them away. But they're like, but I look at them and I'm like, but there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't have their pair.
I wish I would have found that basket when I was there. I would have thrown them away for you.
Help me. I think a couple of your socks are in it because I don't recognize them.
That's probably where my missing socks are.
Okay.
All right. Well, have a great day.
Yeah, we're going to go to the vintage market so I can buy more trinkets to move.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, I'm going to be your accountability partner and I'm going to ask later tonight what you purged.
I am my own worst enemy. Yes. For everything that I purchase today, I'm going to have to get rid of something when I get back.
Plus probably a handful more.
Well, mind your business. Okay.
Cool. All right.
Love you. Bye.